Hello and welcome to our coverage of the 2019 Thailand International Motor Expo. It's a very busy day today and arguably the biggest single announcement, the new Honda City. So let's go have a closer look. Now, Honda is trying a different tack this time around with the new City because it's not so obviously based on the Jazz. Well, it is still based on the Jazz, but compared to the old car, it's slightly longer and wider, but it is lower. And it has a shorter wheelbase, which is unusual for a new model. As you can see, the proportions have also changed quite a bit. The bonnet is slightly longer on this car, and that gives it more of a conventional 3-box sedan look. The window line is also straighter, it's less of an angle compared to before, and instead of the complex surfacing that you have on the current car, you get a straight line running from the front to the rear. It's a simpler design, and I have to say, does look a little bit cheap in my opinion, but there are some interesting touches, so let's go have a look at the front of the car. Now, the front borrows quite a bit from the latest Civic and Accord, and that gives it a more dynamic and aggressive look. As you can see at the front here, you've got the LED headlights with a single continuous strip of LED daytime running lights, as well as this solid wing face grille. Now, this RS model has a gloss black grille, whereas the other models have a chrome grille. Along here, the door mirrors have moved from the A-pillars to the tops of the doors, and that gives it a more upmarket look. Down here, you've got some nice two-tone alloy wheels on this RS model. These measure up to 16 inches in diameter. The rear end, a lot of people have been saying, looks a bit like the G20 BMW 3 Series, but I think it looks handsome all the same. If you look at the taillights, they are of a two-piece design and they look kind of similar to the ones on the new Jazz. And if you come around here, it says VTEC Turbo on the rear windscreen. We'll talk more about that later on. Inside, again, there's quite a bit of difference from the Jazz, whereas the new Jazz has a very minimalist dashboard. This one has a lot more lines and a lot more angles. Now, just like the current car, there's not a lot of soft touch plastics in here. As you can see, there's just a single strip along here. This now has real contrast stitching, not the fake injection molded stuff that you have currently. The center screen is big, measures 8 inches across. It's a touchscreen, of course, and it supports Apple CarPlay. Not Android Auto, unfortunately, but there we are. Down here, you've got the same aircon controls as the Jazz. The climate control system on this one gets actual buttons and knobs instead of haptic touch buttons. And that's a very, very good thing. Now, instead of the 2-spoke steering wheel of the Jazz, the City has the same 3-spoke item as the Accord. And if you look at the dial faces, you can see that these are analog dials, not digital like on the Jazz. Also, unlike the Jazz, if you look down here, you've got an actual handbrake instead of the electronic parking brake that you have on the Jazz. And yes, it has an actual armrest. I know a lot of you have been clamoring for that. Now, Honda says that despite the shortened wheelbase, this has more room than ever before. That's because they've designed the seats, the front seat backs, to be a little bit narrower and a little bit thinner. The headrests are also lower, so you can see there's this sort of weird box shape that you have just like on the Accord, and that should give rear passengers more forward visibility. Now, if you look down here, you can see that this car does not have the rear aircon vents of the current model. Instead, there's just a cup holder in the center. But it's the same thing with the previous generation Thai model, and we got the air vents instead. So you can expect the same with our cars. Now, Honda hasn't published a figure for the boot space, but you can expect it to be just as spacious as before. And while this car doesn't have folding rear seats, you can see there's just a wall here. That's the same case with the current model, and you can expect Malaysian markets to continue having a folding rear bench. Now, the biggest change is obviously under the bonnet, where the City now has a 1-litre VTEC Turbo 3-cylinder petrol engine. It's the same engine that you have in the Civic in Europe, and it makes 121 horsepower and 174 newton meters of torque. That's just 3 horsepower more, but 28 newton meters more. There's a CVT on this car like the previous model, and this car also has stop start. Now, this engine enables the City to meet Thailand's Eco Car Phase 2 regulations, which among others requires a minimum fuel economy figure of 23.36 kilometers per litre. Right now, it's unclear whether this engine will arrive in Malaysia, and it's been specifically been added in Thailand to meet Eco Car 2 regulations. However, we didn't know whether the Civic was going to get the VTEC Turbo engine, and it did, so fingers crossed we'll get this one. As for safety, this car comes with 4 airbags and stability control as standard, with the higher end models getting 6 airbags. However, this car does not come with autonomous emergency braking, which its rivals like the new Nissan Almera and the Mitsubishi Attrage have. Honda lagging behind Mitsubishi and Nissan when it comes to safety, that's a first. So there you have it, the brand new Honda City. It's got a lot of tech on board, but the fact that it doesn't have autonomous emergency braking, even as an option, is a bit of a shame. But what do you think? Let us know in the comments section. Until next time, thank you for watching.